world of cable news screaming and social media echo chambers, it's easy to lose the signal in the noise. Every day, policy is debated, votes are cast, and your tax dollars are spent. We cut through the headlines to bring you the critical context you need, focusing on what's really going on in news and politics. Welcome to the Analytical Iowan Podcast. This is your daily dose of fact-driven politics. Let's analyze today's news. Here's Eric.
And we are back on the Analytical Iowan TikTok Live podcast. Decided to go live tonight. I'm recording this Monday night as part of Martin Luther King night. We are going to be discussing news and politics. And we got a lot to talk about. And waiting for people to show up. We're going to see who we all get. Are we going to get some of our regulars? I haven't really told anybody politics. And we got, like I said, we got a lot to talk about. We've got the big story talking about everything going on when it comes to Donald Trump and Greenland. Now, news broke today of a text message exchange where they were talking about having de-escalating, right? The Prime Minister of Norway was messaging Donald Trump, said, hey, we got to calm things down. We got to de-escalate. And they ended up not de-escalating. Donald Trump came back and basically said, I'm going to take Greenland because you didn't give me the Nobel Peace Prize. And if this reminds you of something, it should. If you look to history, this is very similar to a certain person from the 1930s not getting into art school and blaming everybody else for his problems. History often repeats itself. Bren says he's a child. Very much. He's a toddler. Always has been. Less of an articulate toddler, the longer the fact that he is trying to push and bully and threaten allies is very concerning. We've got a lot going on in this country that he should be focused on fixing things here. I thought he was America first, but it's not America first. It never has been. It has always 100% been Donald Trump first, period. And he wants to acquire Greenland. He wants the Nobel Peace Prize. He wants it because he doesn't have it and somebody else does. Now, I really thought that Maria Machado's giving of the physical medal was going to calm Donald Trump down for a little while, and it didn't do that. Maria Machado's giving of the physical medal was going to calm Donald Trump down for a little while, and it didn't do that. Brent says military will hold down Greenland. Are you talking about if the military would actively go against a NATO ally? That may be a bridge too far for the military. Representative Don Bacon has talked about how they have the votes should he invade Greenland, that they have the votes in Congress to impeach and remove, is what Don Bacon said, which leads back to what I've said for a long time. I have said that I've been saying for almost a full year since he has been sworn in, and tomorrow will be the 1-year anniversary of him being president on the 20th. 1 year down, 3 to go if he lives that long. But I've been saying the whole time that they've been having meetings behind closed doors that Donald Trump doesn't know about. And they're talking about what to do because of Donald Trump, and when do they make the move? When do they go after him, etc.? When do they decide that enough is enough and that they have to make a move? When do they go after him, etc.? When do they decide that enough is enough and that they have to make a change. And it's ridiculous, right? Like the fact that they're even having these conversations behind closed doors. Matt says if they do turn him, it will be suddenly and all of them will. Yeah, when they make that move, they're not going to make the move until they know they have the votes to do it. And then once they know they have the votes, it's going to be a dog pile. It's going to be a dog pile. It's going to be similar to what happened with the Epstein files. If you watch how with the Epstein files, they it started, they just had enough to get everything going. And then once they crossed that threshold, and as the vote was getting closer and closer and closer, what happened? All members of Congress, except for one, dogpiled and said, okay, we're going to pass this thing. And that's what's going to happen when it comes down to removing Donald Trump. It's going to be a dog pile there. And once they know for sure that they have the vote, be a dog pile there. And once they know for sure that they have the votes, and as it comes out, it is going to be insane. He's not going to see it coming. It's not going to be something he's going to anticipate. And I guarantee you, the articles of impeachment are probably going to be drafted ahead of time. We're not going to hear about it until after they are written, till after the ink is dried, basically. They are going to pull it up. They are probably going to vote on it. It's going to be something that happens in a matter of minutes. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe they take a little bit, but I don't think they will. I think it is going to be something where they have everything in place behind the scenes. They move in, they move it over to the Senate. Senate calls for a trial. It wouldn't even surprise me if they had talked to the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, John Roberts, ahead of time and said, hey, talk to the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, John Roberts, ahead of time and said, hey, we're doing this. Be ready to be in the Senate today for a trial, so that they pass it, they pass the articles, they walk them over to the Senate, and they start the trial in minutes, because Donald Trump will burn the Republican Party down in the process, because that's what he does. He will burn anything and everybody that doesn't bow to him, that doesn't give him exactly what he wants. And what he wants is, ultimate power, fear, respect, all of those things. Donald Trump is going to be blindsided when the Republicans move away from him. And I think he's completely caught off guard by the fact that our NATO allies are not, just bowing down to him and saying, okay, yes, Mr. President, yes, Donald Trump, you can have Greenland. The fact of the matter is, if it is such a big deal for national security like he claims, we already have agreements with Greenland and Denmark, but we can pretty much put whatever military base we want there. He can put and station whatever he thinks is proper for troops there, and he can move on. Brent says he's pissed at Canada again. Oh, I'm sure. I've heard that ever since he attacked Venezuela, that Canada has now been on his mind again. Stacy says, is there a rumor the Republican Party is going to turn on him? Representative Don Bacon came out over the weekend. I did a video on it where he said they have the votes to impeach and remove, is what Don Bacon said, if Donald Trump militarily attacks Greenland. Votes to impeach and remove is what Don Bacon said, if Donald Trump militarily attacks Greenland. I'm not going to say that's a rumor. It is what a sitting member in Congress has said. Now, was he posturing that they have the votes to remove? Maybe. considering that he's in the House and the Senate's the one that has to make the vote to remove. But I've been saying all along, I do not anticipate the Republicans in the House to pass articles of impeachment against Donald Trump if they don't know they have the votes in the Senate to remove him. You don't go after the king and miss. They're king and miss. When they make that move, it's going to be strategic because they're worried about their party being burned down for a generation. It's probably already too late. I think they've done enough harm, the Republicans have, that they are going to end up being down for a while. What do you mean, Cowtown? I just told you where I got that from. I mean, sitting members of Congress are saying votes to remove him, at least one thing. Now, one of the things Republicans don't understand, Republican voters, MAGA voters, live is glitching. Republicans don't understand, Republican voters, MAGA voters, live is glitching. Let me try this, see if that makes it any better. Get off my Wi-Fi network and see if that helps. One thing Republicans don't understand, though, is, they think they're winning, right? They think they're on the right side of history, but they're not. And if any of what was going on right now under the Donald Trump administration was happening under a Democrat, two things they don't understand. One is they'd be pissed. They wouldn't be backing whatever a Democrat did. They'd be mad just like we are. But what they also don't understand is that we would also be mad. Suave de Boner says, how about pushing to abolish DHS and ICE? Yeah, I heard about that. I heard that they are looking at trying to do things like that, and they're pushing when it comes to funding about cutting the defense spending, the DHS and the ICE budget, and that they may not pass all of the authorizations they need because of that. Cowtown says, North Carolina just passed Democrats in registration. And just because you vote Republican, I know I've been seeing a lot of creators talking about how we should be registering Republican, going into the primary and primarying out, helping to remove a bunch of the ones that are in there. Who's to say it's not people who are going to register Republican for the primary, turn around, and then vote Democrat? Could happen. I myself am a registered independent, always have been. Mostly because I thought by registering independent years ago that'll save me. I won't get all the political crap mailed to me. I was wrong, but that's what I thought about at 18, when I registered independent, and I've never changed it. I've never changed my thing. I have voted Republican, Democrat, Independent. And I will tell you this, when it comes to being independent like that, I have never regretted voting for a Democrat. I have regretted voting for an independent, and I have regretted voting for a Republican. Several Republicans. Brent says, absolutely. Suave de Boner says, why not? Are you talking about registering Republican and primarying out some of these people? Yeah, let's do it. Especially, well, it depends where you're at, right? If you have multiple good Democrats and it doesn't matter which one you get, okay, go after the Republican. If you're in an area where you've got one good Democrat, but you've got several that are iffy, or that might be Republicans or even MAGA trying to be Democrats, maybe vote Democrat in the primary, trying to make sure that you get the right one. Stacy says, no, just have most Democrats run for office. Yeah, we need to have Democrats running in every race. Every race needs to be contended. There are some races where the Republican wins by default with 70, 80% of the vote because they don't have a legitimate challenger. Katrina says they live in Maryland. Suave says like Fetterman, exactly. Fetterman. He's he was a Democrat. He was. Up until he ended up having whatever mental problems he had, and I don't know, didn't he have a stroke, I think? And it caused him to shift and become way more conservative. And he's effectively a Republican. And I don't think he gets reelected out of Pennsylvania. I just don't think he comes back. I think he's going to be gone. But we have to deal with him till... Didn't he get elected in 22, so we have to deal with him till 28? Yeah, Katrina says Fetterman needs to go. Exactly. Thomas is another one from Iowa. Yeah, Thomas, I think you're gonna see Iowa start to go blue. I think Rob Sand is gonna be the next governor. Unless something comes up to greatly derail his campaign in the primary and the Democrats screw everything up, I think Rob Sand becomes governor here. And I think you're going to see several members of the House and maybe even a Democratic senator. I think Rob Sand is going to be able to propel Democrats to flipping it back to purple here in Iowa. G.I. Gallifrey J says, so are they going to remove him if he invades Greenland? According to Representative Don Bacon, that I was just talking about a little bit ago, he's a Republican from Omaha. He has said that the Republicans have the votes to remove Donald Trump, to impeach and remove Donald Trump if he invades Greenland. Which tells me I've been right about them holding the closed-door meetings. I knew it was happening without even talking to anybody in politics. That I figured they would be having these meetings behind closed doors, trying to figure out what they need to do. And Donald Trump will be none the wiser when it happens. Suave says, Grassley's still running? As far as I know, but he's not up for re-election until 28. This is for the seat in Iowa that was held by Joni Ernst, and she decided not to run because she had gotten a lot of bad press. She's the one who said at a town hall when asked about Medicaid, when they said the Medicaid cuts were going to unalive people, somebody said, well, they'd be unalived if they didn't have their Medicaid. And she goes, well, we're all going to unalive someday. Katrina says, will they do it though? That's according to Don Bacon, that they already know they have the votes. Brent says, how do they remove? Military? Well, it doesn't matter. All they have to do, they hold the impeachment vote. It goes over to the Senate. They hold the trial. And it will probably be a quick trial. If the Republicans are going against their own guy, it would probably be very quick. And once they vote to convict and they pass sentence of being removed from office, J.D. Vance just takes the oath. They don't have to get Donald Trump out of the Oval Office. He would no longer have any of the authority to remove. I don't think you would need to bring the military in there. Curious One says, North Carolina Senator Tom Tillis wants to impeach. And that's what I'm talking about. There's calls in the Republican Party. They're getting the votes together. And when they make that move, everybody's going to be surprised by how fast it is. Uh, Apple says, I think the House will impeach, but not the Senate. Um, no, what I think because it's Republicans controlling both, they're not going to make that move in the House unless they have the votes in the Senate. Because they're not going to want to embarrass themselves and they don't want to face the wrath of Donald Trump trying to burn the party down for them doing it. They are going to move on and they are going to, when they make that move, it's going to be like a light switch. And you are going to see them flip the switch, flip the script, and they are going to say, we're done with you. It is going to happen. And like, I think you're going to see the impeachment happen. Like, everything's going to, it's not going to be one of those things where you're going to have like Don Bacon come out, well, we're going to launch an impeachment inquiry. It's going to be Republican, and I'm going to say Don Bacon because he's the one talking about it in the House. He's going to come up and say, I'm introducing a motion to impeach articles of impeachment against Donald Trump. And when it happens, Mike Johnson may try to scuttle it. I think they're going to already have the votes for a discharge petition, and they're going to turn around and say, we have the votes, let's vote on it. And once it happens, it is going to be a dog pile. The minute it comes out and they have the votes ahead, it's going to be like what happened with the Epstein files. I mentioned that earlier. It went from being, well, we barely hit 218 to vote to release the Epstein files, to we have nearly unanimous in both chambers of Congress. It's going to happen, and it's going to happen in a matter of maybe a day or two. I don't think it's going to take weeks for this to happen when they make that move, because they are not going to want to give Donald Trump the kind of time to respond, to attack them, to do anything. It is going to be extremely fast. Katrina says, then we get Vance. Yes, Vance would be next. But the problem with J.D. Vance for the Republicans is he does not have the hold over the Republican Party like Donald Trump does. Okay? They will not bow to his beck and call. If Donald Trump was gone and it was J.D. doing all this stuff with Greenland, they'd remove him too. They're not afraid of J.D. They're not afraid of what MAGA will do because of J.D., because MAGA doesn't like J.D. Vance. It won't be the same. And J.D. Vance, he's going to be given marching orders by the Republican Party going, fix this, or we're screwed in 28. And he's going to have to do whatever he can to make things better in the process. It is going to be up to J.D. Vance to try to salvage the midterms, or if they move before the midterms, or to salvage the 28 general, because Republicans are afraid that they could be out for a generation if they don't fix it. Magdalena says, you have a good memory. Well, thank you. Yeah, I try. There's a lot going on, and it is hard to keep it all straight sometimes. Stacy says JD can go with him. And that's the thing. If JD gets out of line, they would move him. They would take him too. Bo says EU talking about using a bazooka for dealing with Trump dumping bonds. That's one of the things when Donald Trump would or doesn't understand, right? All of our allies own a big chunk of our debt. What is it, like $27 trillion or whatever that number is now? Most of our allies own that. And if they call the debt and say, okay, pay up, we're screwed. We are only in business because we keep finding people to borrow from. And you would think Donald Trump would understand that for as much money juggling as he does, constantly having to borrow another loan to pay off a different one and switch banks, and because he's done that repeatedly. Suave says, doesn't the whole cabinet get removed? No. On an impeachment, only the person being impeached gets removed. Now, if J.D. Vance becomes president, one of the things he could do would be ask for the resignation of everybody in the cabinet. And he might do that almost immediately. and start putting in his people. And I guarantee you, J.D. Vance would be able to get way more competent people in his administration because he won't be tainted by, I mean, he will be tainted by the stench of Donald Trump, but he's not as incompetent as Donald Trump. And the Republicans that would be able to get on board, they think that their careers would survive a J.D. Vance presidency. Stacy says, what if they impeach the VP at the same time for enabling? Well, they would have to have the votes to remove Vance separately. And I don't know if they can, I think they could do it in one trial. They might have to do it in separate. And if they do, that's what the 25th Amendment is for. It sets up the line of succession. If there is a vacancy at president, the vice president automatically becomes president. He appoints his own VP. If there is a vacancy in both positions at the same time, Speaker of the House would become president. And that would mean currently it would become Mike Johnson. Now, all of this might be moot, and they may never end up impeaching him until after Democrats take over. And in that case, if they remove Trump and Vance, then it would become Speaker of the House, who could be a Democrat, assuming Democrats have control of the House after the midterms. And then it would presumably be Hakeem Jeffries. But I don't think it waits that long. I think the Republicans are getting nervous about the midterms. And the closer it gets, they're thinking about pulling that, pulling that lever and saying, let's go with it. Because their strategy, I think, for the midterms will be, well, you got to give Republicans 2 more years of being in control of Congress so JD can fix everything. Because, well, he just got here. He's now just in charge. I fully see everything. Suave says, which article specifies the whole cabinet and vice goes to? None of them. What a lot of people are misconstruing about that article, and Apple says, is that Article 4? What they misconstrue about Article 4 is it lays out some of the people who can be impeached and removed. The way I've always read it, and I think most members of Congress and most legal scholars and stuff would read it as they would have to still be impeached and removed separately. Just that those are the people who can be. Stacy says we need to impeach them all. Yeah. We do. Problem is, impeachment's a high bar. It is very hard to impeach and remove. We have never successfully impeached and removed anybody. If we get rid of Trump, Vance will take care of most of the cabinet on his own by trying to get more qualified people in. And that may be the bigger win there. Curious One says, what about Thiel and Miller? They are Trump's handlers. Yeah, but they go away when Trump does. I don't think Vance keeps them. Especially if he's been giving orders by the Republican Party. Rocky says, do you think Miller will still run things behind the scenes if Trump is gone? No. Because I think the Republican Party, if they make the move against Trump, they're going to try to change their image and go back to being closer to Bush-era Republicans because they're afraid of getting, a generation of losses. That they're afraid of getting a whole bunch of, L's and having it be similar to what happened in 1930, roughly after the Great Depression, when they lost the House and the Senate and the presidency, and Democrats basically had control of all three with convincing majorities for 20 years. Brent asks if there are any updates on the Fed chair. No, not really. I think that was another just a tactic trying to throw something out there and get people talk about it, and it didn't stick in the media headlines. So Donald Trump pivoted. He moved on to something else in order to one of the big things about this whole thing is trying to keep the Epstein files out of the public narrative. That's one of the things they're trying to do. And it's so far it's kind of working. But remember, we are 30 days past the deadline for those Epstein files to be released. And we still don't have but maybe 1% of them. Something is going to break with that. And when it does, this administration is going to be scrambling. Suave says China is selling our debt like crazy right now. Yeah. If they are, that's bad. Because they're one of the biggest people we borrow from. And ultimately, we are going to have to worry about that. But see, Donald Trump doesn't understand any of it. And he's going to put us in a bind. You know, they say, well, how are they going to stand against our military? They don't have to take us militarily. They can cripple us financially by calling in all of our debt. Magdalena says if Trump is impeached, he might still give orders through Vance. No. I don't think that would happen. Donald Trump would try to burn the Republican Party down. But it won't be a matter of giving orders through Vance, because even if they do, the Republicans are going to, I guarantee you, give Vance very clear marching orders saying, we just took out Donald Trump. You don't think we can do it to you too? You're not taking orders from him. We're trying to move past him. I don't think any of that is going to happen. He is not going to want the smoke that would come with that. Suave says, how do we get rid of the cabinet? Well, as I was talking about, we have to, if once Vance gets in, I think he takes care of most of that for us. If Vance becomes president, I don't think that we are going to have to worry about impeaching and removing the cabinet. I think Vance starts asking for resignations and starting to put in his people. Starts with the ones that are embattled in the media, that are making them look bad. Kristi Noem probably to start. Probably Hegseth and Kash Patel, probably starting there and at least bringing in different people who are probably going to be more qualified, just because they're not going to be assumed to be Trump's people, right? And they're going to try to rebuild the Republican Party, trying to salvage whatever they can going into 28. Sue says, we don't want Johnson. No, wait. No, we don't. We don't want Johnson. But that's only if they take out both Trump and Vance at the same time. If Trump goes, Vance becomes president, he would just get to pick somebody. And one of the common theories I'm seeing is if that something happens to Donald Trump, whether the Big Mac gets him, he walks away, or the Republicans remove him, is that they would pick a reasonable Republican, if you can say there's such a thing anymore. Somebody say like Brian Kemp out of Georgia, and that would be the pick for VP, and that they'd give it 6 months to a year, and after things didn't improve enough, that they would find a reason to remove Vance too. And then you would have an old guard establishment Republican back in charge. And that's a possibility, but that would take Democratic support. I don't know if that happens. Bosa saw a TikTok that someone was unalived in a Texas detention center. I haven't seen that yet. But I'm not surprised. Stacy says, well, that's going to happen anyway. You're talking about Donald Trump burning the Republican Party down? Oh, yeah. He's going to burn it down on his way out the door, whether that's January 20th, 2029, whether they use the 25th Amendment, whether they impeach and remove him. He's going to burn the Republican Party down. They're just trying to do it in a way that mitigates the damage. And, using an analogy to a property fire, a house fire, they're trying to keep it to maybe where they only lose the garage and not the entire building. If they're not careful for getting rid of Donald Trump, the whole house is going to go, and there's going to be nothing left. And they're not going to know what to do. Sue says, yeah, but they're all part of Project 2025, including Vance. He may keep some of them because of that. I don't think so. I think they make the move because of public perception, right? He may get other people that were part of Project 2025 or are in that mix that aren't as publicly known as being part of it. But I think they try to make a change just enough to make it appear to be different, because they want to keep people thinking that they're actually trying to fix and change things. Stacy says they have burned a lot of bridges and trust with the Epstein files. Oh, they have. And I think same with when they decide to move on Donald Trump, I think it's going to be a dog pile. There is going to be at some point, something is going to come out, whether it's been released by the Epstein estate, whether it's from the Oversight Committee, or whether it's something the DOJ missed in their bogus redactions as all of this stuff comes out, or maybe somebody at the DOJ leaked it or what. Something is going to come out from there. We just need one good picture of Donald Trump in a compromising position, which probably exists, say with an underage girl in a various state of undress sitting on his lap. Once it's out and it's evident that there's something there, it's going to be a dog pile for Republicans to move on him. And then once that dam breaks, they're not going to be able to stop the water. Everything's going to come out, and it's going to be, unbearable for Republicans. Suave says, think you will see a couple of blue states withhold funds to the Fed? I don't know, because I don't know how they do that and they pull it off, because a lot of the employers send the tax money straight to the federal government. So I don't know how they manage to pull it off. It's a great talking point. I just don't know how it happens. Stacy says there is apparently a lot of congressmen in those Epstein files, and they all need to be exposed. They do. They all do. Every last one of them. I don't care what side of the political aisle you're on. If you are in there, we need to know who you are and what you did. Now, some of them, there is the entire possibility that a few of them, maybe that the only reason they're in there is because they attended an event that Epstein was at and they did nothing wrong. There may be a few, but I guarantee you most of everybody in those files has some level of guilt, and they all need to be held accountable for everything they did. WTR Cub says he already burned the Republican Party. Oh, he did? But it's going to be way worse when they go to take him down. Suave says, methinks Trump flees to Qatar. It wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me one bit if he tries to flee to Qatar, except for the fact that Donald Trump, as a narcissist, fleeing is not in his mindset. Maybe if he was still, 20 years younger and not facing dementia, but I don't think that would ever enter his mind at this point at all. WTR Cub says people supporting him are not real Republicans. No, they are far from real Republicans. If we had Nixon-level Republicans, Donald Trump would have been out on his ass during the first term. WTR Cub also says Vance is as bad as the rest of the cabinet. He is Trump. Yeah. He's as bad as the rest. Difference is they're going to have him on such a short leash, he's not going to be able to do anything. That's the big difference. They can't control Donald Trump. They will be definitely able to control J.D. Vance. It's apples and oranges, right? User says, didn't 47 say if he goes down, he's taking others with him? Yeah, he'll take everybody down with him, because in his mind, he's supposed to be untouchable. He's perfect. And if They turn on him. Well, he's got no loyalty to them anymore, and he will release anything and everything he can to go after it. G.I. Gallifrey says, Vance does whatever will make him look better. Following Trump won't make him look better. Exactly. He's a chameleon to better himself. Yeah. And that's just the thing. If they're giving him marching orders about fixing the image, that's what he's going to do. If it means tamping down the rhetoric and starting to talk like a Bush-level Republican again and trying to change public perception, there's going to be at least a group of Republicans, especially because that's all Fox is going to cover, that are going to slowly go back under the rock. They're gonna start going back to talking how they did in the early 2000s. They're only amped up right now because of Donald Trump. Do they agree with a lot of what he says? I don't know. I think some of them just have gotten, like, because it's all they hear, they think they're on the right side, and they're very confused. But J.D. Vance is going to be the one to ultimately have to fix this mess, I think, on the Republican side anyway. I don't think it's going to work, but he's going to be the one tasked with that job. Brent says, do you think Jack Smith would bring Trump up on new charges? Maybe. If the new attorney general, when the Democrats are in power, puts Jack Smith back in as special counsel, I would love to see it. And he could also be a pick for attorney general, potentially, under the Democrats. So it could happen. Chaz says, how about Donnie blowing Putin? I mean, I don't know that would be a bridge too far if that image comes out. But I think because of how MAGA responds to the files, that they would end up, if they find out that he's in the files and there's images with children, that would be a bridge too far for Donald Trump and they would turn on him. Brent says, I saw a TikTok that Obama was on the island more than once. First time I'm hearing this. I haven't seen any TikToks about that at all. I think that is just somebody trying to draw a false comparison and try to say, well, see, we're saying he's in the island, he went to the island. What do you have to say about that? Well, you know, why don't you say anything bad about Obama now because he was there? That's all it is. Don says Trump is great. Yeah, you can go peddle that somewhere else. I already blocked you. Magdalena says, yeah, Trump is great in hell, pretty much. Gia Gallifrey says, far from it. How is he great? Losing value in our dollar? Yeah, exactly. They always try to say he is great and he's doing all of these good things for America, but they can never point at anything that's not just talking points and rhetoric. There's no actual substance there. It's very bizarre. Kate says, have you read any of the Sasha Riley interview? Followed up by Urban Oracle saying, I listened to the entire interview from July of 25, locked them all up. I have heard that, I've heard some of it. I don't know if any of it's true. I haven't been able to verify any of it independently. One of the things that gives credence to the fact that it could be true is the fact that Donald Trump is not talking about it. The Republicans aren't talking about it. They've completely and totally ignored it because they don't want to. I think they're afraid that if they bring attention to it, it could end up blowing up and being this huge story. But beyond that, how does Donald Trump deal with things? As Gallifrey says, he would sue if it wasn't true. Yeah. He threatened a lawsuit. That's how he deals with everything, is he threatens to sue. And he hasn't threatened to sue Sasha Riley. There's been no mention of Sasha Riley. Now, is he not threatening to sue because he doesn't want to deal with discovery? Because, oh, buddy, the discovery in that trial would be great. And thing is, if there's evidence in the Epstein files that proves Sasha Riley is right, discovery would do that. And there would be court orders to compel whatever evidence is there. There would also be, they would also be able to compel and force Donald Trump to turn over medical records. And if there is any truth to this story of Sasha Riley taking a tent stake and shoving it up Donald Trump and causing him that to be the reason why he needs a diaper, that could be in his medical records. And again, Donald Trump would not want the smoke from that. He does not want any of that brought out and brought to light. That's one of the reasons why they're not discussing it. They are not talking about Sasha Riley, which makes me think that maybe there is something there. It could just be, speculation. But that's the best we've got until something comes out either from the files or there's some other evidence besides Sasha Riley just saying it. It sounds compelling, but I want some proof to back it up. Because, I could go out and say, well, when I was a kid, this happened and blah, 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 blah. And I could make up a compelling story. But with no proof, I don't want anybody buying it. You know what I mean? So let's see what comes out. I'm hoping something does come out from the files to back it up. Bo says DOJ investigating Don Lemon because he went to a church with an ICE leader and confronted him. Yeah. That's what they do. They investigate anybody who stands up to them and tries to, go after them like that. It is a bully tactic. It's not going to work, but they're just trying to get people to comply because it's all they have left. They're grasping at straws because their policies aren't working, because they really don't have policy. Oliver's mom says Michelle would have kicked her husband out, or would have kicked her husband's butt if he even thought about going to the island. Exactly. Brent says the interviewer is from Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. I have listened to all of them. It's horrendous. From what I've seen, the bits and pieces I've gotten from it, it is horrendous. The fact that the interviewer is Canadian, again, leads a little bit more credibility to it. But I just wish there was a little bit of, proof to back it up. Christian says, DOJ investigating a news reporter for actually covering the news. Exactly. They want us to believe that the press and the free media is the enemy of the people. It's ridiculous. We have freedom of the press. And technically, I think even though I don't view myself as press, I view myself as a political commentator. I think I technically qualify as press in this category. And well, if Fox News can be called can say in court that they're entertainment and still use the word news, maybe I do qualify. But we have it so the press can report on the things that are going on, regardless of how they make the administration look. Gallifrey says his whole GI issue explained with Riley's testimony about the tent stake. Yeah, it could. But, would love to see some proof to back that up. And to go with it. Gallifrey says, good night, all. It's late for me. We are one day closer to the end. Yes, we are. And just a reminder, I'll remind everybody at the end, too, that barring TikTok doing something weird and preventing me from downloading this will be up as tomorrow's Analytical Iowan podcast. So you can check that out over on YouTube and Spotify. so that way you can catch whatever you miss going forward there. Urban says, looks like Greenland may be the final straw for enough Republicans to flip. Impeachment thoughts. We've been talking about that quite a bit. Don Bacon, representative from Omaha, Republican, came out and said if they use the military against Greenland, they already have the votes to impeach and remove, at least is what the article I read said. And I've been saying all along, I do not expect the Republicans to remove Donald Trump if they don't have the votes in the Senate to remove him. I guarantee you, they're in discussions in closed doors. When this all happens, it is going to go quick. It's going to go fast. It's going to be done, and everybody is going to be taken by surprise. I don't know why I keep getting invites to co-host other lives when I'm sitting here doing my own. I'd rather just do my own thing. Aunt Molly says Bacon is not running again. Okay. So he has less to fear. But the fact that they're saying they have the votes is startling, right? The fact that they're saying that at least on this one issue, and maybe he was just trying to put pressure on Donald Trump, but if they're already saying on this issue they have the votes, how many other issues do they have the votes on? Kate says, do I remember you from Rational Boomers Lives? Yes, I'm routinely over on his panel. And I've been also trying to get on other people's panels every now and then, but most don't pull me up. So, yeah, I'm over there all the time. And I'm routinely, about once a week, am I just a guest over on the Rational Boomer podcast. Bo says, here in Canada, I keep hearing that the White House is paying people in Alberta to separate from Canada. It wouldn't surprise me if they're trying it, but where's he getting the money from? Because Congress would be the one to have to authorize that. But then again, he's not following Congress necessarily. We hear that he, when he seized all that Venezuelan oil and sold off $500 million worth, that money is sitting in an offshore account in Qatar. That's not how U.S. money is supposed to go. If this is something that was done backed by the U.S. government, and I don't even know how us getting a controlling stake in that money is even legal, or where he gets the idea that we deserve it, other than the fact he's a narcissist and he wants it. That money should go into the Treasury to pay our bills and to pay down the interest on a bunch of our bonds and our Treasury notes and our loans, all of those things. Not sitting in an offshore account that only Donald Trump can cover. When this administration is gone, there needs to be a full forensic investigation of all of the accounting, top to bottom, and try to figure out what has been done, where did the money go, who had control of what, and we need to figure out what we can cut, how we can fix things, and do what Doge was actually supposed to have done the whole time. Kate says, thanks for responding. Well, you're welcome. I try to respond to everybody, except the MAGAs. They get blocked, mostly because they're not worth dealing with, because they all they do, they report you, they try to get you taken down, they come in and say stupid stuff like Trump is king, and they just try to start fights, but they don't actually have anything important to add to the conversation. All right. Oliver's mom says Trump will not step down like Nixon did. He's too much of a narcissist to step down. However, If we were talking about Donald Trump from the early 2000s, 20 years ago, hell, maybe even during his first term, he might have stepped down. I think the dementia is too far gone that you're not going to get that rational, clear thought to where he thinks it's the best thing for him. The only way they could maybe get him to step down is they would have to explain it to him like he's 3, saying, "Oh, Donnie, well, if you step down, well, JD Vance will make it so you don't get into any trouble for any of the things you did, and you'll be able to go back to your Mar-a-Lago and play your golf, and you won't have anything to do, you won't have any stress from any of this, and you'll make much more money doing it that way." Maybe explaining to him like that, maybe, but that's a far cry. I just don't think he's got the mental capabilities now to actually realize that stepping down would be in his best interest. Curious one says Congress is practically null and void. Yeah, he is. Congress is kind of worthless at this point. In part because Republicans haven't decided, they haven't realized that buddying up to Donald Trump is going to cost them the midterms. It's going to cost them in 2028. At least they haven't said that publicly, right? They are waiting for that opportunity, and they are trying to walk that tightrope because they know about 30% of the Republican base will always vote for Republicans and Donald Trump as long as you don't turn on him. If you turn on Donald Trump, that 30% of the Republican base would not vote again. And they're afraid that would mean Democrats would be in power for a generation. They're trying to walk that tightrope and find a way to get rid of him while still keeping the MAGA base happy. And they're really realizing it is not that easy to do. Magdalena says, so true, he will never step down. No, I don't think he will. Just because he's not in the right mind to make that decision anymore. Oliver's mom says knife, not a hatchet, talking about doing something like what Doge was doing. Exactly. But you also got to realize, I'm not even talking about a knife. I'm talking about a full forensic account. Going in and figuring out, okay, not just continuing to rubber stamp some of these projects. When you hear these planes are 15 years behind schedule and, hundreds of billions of dollars over budget, maybe we need to look at figuring out, and put it all completely under a microscope and figure out where every penny went. But see, Doge didn't touch the defense budget at all, which is weird. Scott says, seems like there are fewer MAGAs jumping on lives. What do I think? Well, I don't know about fewer, because I still see plenty of lives where people are debating MAGA, where MAGA is jumping up and stuff. At least for mine, the minute I see them, they get blocked. And I don't know if it's because of any changes they've made to the algorithm where left-leaning content is not getting pushed nearly as much. And that might be part of it too. I spent the first 20 minutes, 25 minutes of this live, and I think I had 12 people in the room the whole time. So I don't know if that's part of it, but that's, I think part of it is that they're just not seeing the content. Curious one says, I'm waiting or hoping that he will admit to something he forgets he's not supposed to say. Yeah, and that's a very real possibility. He says a lot of things that he's not supposed to say just because he's not there. He talks about taking these cognitive tests. It's the Montreal Cognitive Assessment. And they are designed for people with brain injuries, dementia, etc., to see where you're at. And most people don't need to take more than one unless there's a problem. And I know I've never had to take one. But there clearly is something they're watching him for. And he's not in the right mind. Aunt Molly says they set up an office for his father to go and sign paperwork. Exactly. And honestly, we could have done the same thing for Donald Trump, built him a fake office in Mar-a-Lago, had people come in, schedule meetings, things like that with a couple of TV cameras in front of him. The stuff didn't even have to ever get aired, and he probably wouldn't have known the difference. Oliver's mom says need to impeach the Supreme Court too. Well, we do. Problem is, as with removing Donald Trump or everything, it's a high bar. The easier option would be when Democrats get control again, would be just to expand the court to 13. That would rebalance the court. And then these far-right conservatives, they just wouldn't have the votes to do some of the stupid shit they're going to do. And then work on impeaching and removing them after we fix the court. Urban says, the claim of 30 U.S. warships in South America for months, if true, why? Fear. He he was trying to force Venezuela to comply with what he wanted them to do. They weren't. And then when he got tired of them not complying, that's when he went in and captured Maduro. It's all about fear. Tim for Texas, he is the Tadadaho, history repeating, study the great law of peace, maybe. I don't know what you mean by that at all. Keith says, Joe Biden's out of office. Quit talking about him. Well, I wasn't talking about him. I was talking about your Lord and Savior, and now you're blocked. Time for Tech says, Haudenosaunee Confederacy, 1,000 years of peace, no government shutdowns. Blatt says, so you're recommending we cheat? No, not saying cheat. I'm saying balance the court. And it is, by going to 13, it makes sense. When they went to 9, they went 1 for every district that we had at the time. We had 9 district court judges, or 9 district courts, 9 Supreme Court justices. We now have 13 district courts. You go to 13, it rebalances the court, but it also goes back to one judge, one justice per district court. That says, but that's changing the rules. Let's win fair and square. Okay. But we're only here because the Republicans changed the rules. Republicans changed the rules and said that February was too close to an election to actually hold a vote on a Supreme Court nominee, that the people needed to have a say in a Supreme Court justice. Despite the fact that in the last election, we, the people, had voted in Barack Obama, and Barack Obama had until January 20th of 2017 to be president, and one of the duties of the president is to appoint Supreme Court justices, and they blocked Merrick Garland. So that's where we got, was it Gore? It was either Gorsuch or Kavanaugh. And then in October of 2020, with a month to go before the election, Ruth Bader Ginsburg dies. And instead of holding out and saying, well, following their own rules and saying, well, it's too close to the election, let the people decide, they push through Amy Coney Barrett. Rebalancing the court is... it's not necessarily cheating when they're not playing by their own rules. It is one way to make the court better. Now, but impeaching and removing justices is the other way to go. Problem is, that's such a high bar. Thing is, by the time, and we may not even have to balance the court, because by the time 2029 comes around, you could have a vacancy, and Democrats could do the same thing if they have the Senate after the midterms that Republicans did, and just hold the seat vacant, hold it hostage. Why not? Wait until the Democrats are back in power and then put in their own people. We just have to do something to fix the Supreme Court. Curious One said time to block some people. I have been. Time for Texas. The U.S. copied the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. So research great law and U.S. Constitution. Okay. Molly says number of Supreme Court justices have changed over the year. Yeah, exactly. We had 9, we had 11, we had 7 at one point. I think one time it was 5. The numbers changed. It's not set in stone. I'm just throwing out a number that makes sense because the logic they went to 9 when they went to 9 was 1 for every district. And that made sense. So I'd say let's do it again. Molly says it was Kavanaugh. Okay. And yeah, I couldn't remember if it was Gorsuch or Kavanaugh, which one we got because of them holding open the seat where for Anton Scalia, the one that Barack Obama tried to appoint Merrick Garland to. And every day I wish Merrick Garland had been appointed to that seat, not because of what he would have done on the bench, not because he would have been a raging liberal on the bench, but because then he wouldn't have been the attorney general during the Biden administration, and we would have gotten somebody in there with some teeth who would have gone after everybody involved in January 6th, and Donald Trump wouldn't have been able to skate like he did. Urban says, I've been missing her more and more lately. Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Yeah, she was a great Supreme Court justice. Time for Texas. Decision by consensus benefits all, including the natural world. 7 generational analysis, honor and trees. Yeah, But says you could have a vacancy tomorrow. We could. Considering that you have I think Thomas and Alito are both over 70. I think they're upper 70s. You have I think is it Kagan and Roberts, I think are both right around 70, and who's the other one? There's one more that is right there up there in age too. We could have several. Poker Walking Dead says, yep, hold it hostage. Yeah, why not? Time for Texas. BRICS Alliance. U.S. is screwed. Dollar not worth anything. Well, that's not entirely true yet. The BRICS Alliance isn't up and going very well yet. They were just trying to find a different commodity, a different common currency to trade in, because a lot of commodities are traded in the U.S. dollar. If BRICS gets up and going and a lot of other countries adapt it, yeah, we could be in a lot of trouble. Poker Walking Dead said Republicans need to vacate now. You would think they should. You would think they should, but they're not going to. Oliver's mom says raising the court to 13 would be going with previous precedent. Yes, it would. Court Walking Dead says court means nothing now. Well, yeah. They're really pushing their limits as to whether or not they're legitimate with some of the rulings they've had. We'll have to see what they say on the tariffs. I think they're going to overturn those tariffs, and that is going to be, probably a sticking point. I think Donald Trump is not going to like that. Not that he can do anything about it, but he's going to rant and rave when they do overturn his tariffs. And But this Supreme Court wasn't meant to be permanent. I mean, it was, but they weren't thinking about all of the rulings this Supreme Court was going to hear. They built this Supreme Court was built to overturn Roe v. Wade. Molly says he is still a Federalist. Yeah, Merrick Garland is still definitely a Federalist. But still would have been better on the Supreme Court than as Attorney General. Urban says, do you think Republican politics have been permanently transformed both structurally and culturally? I don't think so. I don't think so. It's just going to take a lot of work on the Republican side to bring it back. Molly says Sotomayor. Yeah. And that is another one who's up there in age. Joseph says, I enjoy you skipping me 4 times while responding to one person 3 times. Well, I didn't see any of your comments. And it says here you only ever sent one. So guess what? You can go away. You claim I'm ignoring you when I've been trying to respond and keeping the chat scrolled up so I can try to get to everybody, and then it shows me you've only sent one comment. Yeah, I don't have time for that bullshit. That's something MAGA would do. Tim says U.S. plagiarized the Great Law incorrectly. That's why everything is a mess. Wouldn't surprise me. Scott says block. Yeah, I mean, and good on you. Yeah. Look, I try to get to everybody, and it's easier to do when I only have 30, 40 people in the room. I'm not like some people who end up with thousands. And if I had thousands of people in here, there's no way I would get to everybody. Plain and simple. And if you're going to complain when you send one chat and, then say, well, I'm skipping you. What probably happened is he said something that TikTok flagged and it never came through. So I wasn't skipping him. It was just probably filtered out because what he was saying was probably offensive or something, which means he's probably, assuming he was probably a MAGA. Magdalena says, never saw his chat ever. And Urban Oracle says, neither did I. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I can click on each of you and it'll tell me. I know I've responded to Urban quite a bit. It says sent 7 comments, and I'm sure it might have been more than that, but it tells me how many you send. Women have right of recall if not working for benefit of all. I don't know what you're talking about there, Time. Time for Texas responsibility versus rights. That is the great law. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things people should be doing that they should be responsible for, and they get caught up on the wrong side of things. They focus on, the rights that they have. Like, is it responsible to own 47 guns? But they do it because they have the right to. But as this is all going, Republicans are in a bind. They don't know what to do with Donald Trump. He's wild, unhinged. He's doing whatever he wants. And they are suffering for it. And honestly, they should. They let him get away with doing too much. They've let him get to this point. And now we are all having to deal with it because they wouldn't stand up to him. Donald Trump is eventually going to be gone. Molly says they worship him. They do. But they do because he did the things that they didn't think were possible, right? 2016, he goes up against their greatest boogeyman. Hillary Clinton had been the boogeyman the Republicans have been using forever. He beats her. And somehow becomes president. Then the unthinkable happens, and we go into 2024 when he's trying to run for another term, and everything, all the metrics, all the everything looks and looks at it, and it looked like Kamala Harris was going to win. Well, she doesn't. He pulls it off again. Not only does he win, he keeps the House and flips the Senate. That's one of the reasons they worship him, because he fell ass backwards into victory twice. Gigi says, do you think he will send the military into Minneapolis? No. I don't think he will. I think it's bluster. And as somebody else pointed out, because of his attention right now, with some of what he's been talking about with Greenland, that it sounds like the paratroopers and stuff he had called up, that they may end up, or he may call them up not for Minneapolis like he said, but as kind of a swerve to go toward Greenland. And that wouldn't surprise me one bit. Time for Tech says, burying the weapons of war would be good. Othering is the first stage of genocide. Yeah, you're right. One of the things that every genocide starts with is the villainization of others. You know, that they're different. They're something else. We're all people. End of the day, we're all people. And we need to remember that. Magdalena says, Trump thinks that he's in the wild, wild west. Yeah. Yeah, he does. He thinks he can get away with doing whatever he wants, and it's a reality TV show, and that everybody should love him the way he loves himself, which is scary. Time for Tech says, I can't wait till his wife finds her voice. I think when the dog pile starts, she's going to be in on it. When they finally turn on him and they dog pile on him, I think she's going to be part of that dog pile. The only thing that's keeping her back right now is she still thinks that when it's all said and done, that because of her prenup, she is going to get financially taken care of out of it. Not realizing that he is probably going to be broke as a joke in, minutes once the dog pile starts. Everything is going to be taken from him, and she's going to probably end up having to change both her name. Barron's probably going to have to change his last name, and they're not going to want to be connected to his legacy. Molly says, time for Tech, she is just like him. She might be, although there is some talk that she was introduced to him through Epstein, and if that's the case, then she's just every bit a victim as anybody else, even if she is now an adult, she still could be considered a victim. Scott says, truth is, he wouldn't have made it 24 hours in the Old West. No, he wouldn't have. Not in the least. Kentucky says, MAGA and Trump are morally and ethically corrupt. 100%. 110%. The whole MAGA idea is based on the idea of the other. And, Instead of fixing the problems, it's blaming somebody else for everything that is wrong in your life. That is where they're at right now. They are convinced, and this isn't the first time this has ever happened in history, right? It has happened a lot. I talked about it earlier. MAGA and Republicans and Trump and stuff, they are convinced that if they make everybody equal, that it's like a pie. And that if you make everybody equal, you make your slice smaller. They don't see how making everybody up and building everything better, by improving everybody, how that fixes a lot of problems and how that makes just things better for everybody else. Oliver's mom says, I'm interested in what is in Melania's movie. I don't know which movie you're talking about. Molly says, greedy, self-centered. Yeah, she is. Grizzly says, we love President Trump. Well, you can go love him somewhere else. This is not a MAGA-friendly space. And you're blocked. Molly says, she is not a victim. She was 28, a gold digger, probably. Could be. But the reason I said she might have been a victim is there was some reporting that she was introduced to Trump through Epstein. So we don't know if that's true. When did she get connected to Epstein? Was she a victim that way? Or is it just that she was at a mutual acquaintance of Epstein and Epstein introduced her? Don't know. Molly said it was at age 28. That's when she met Epstein. Well, then maybe not a victim. I wasn't trying to necessarily defend her as being a good person. I'm just saying she might have been one. Time for Texas. We are all humans becoming. No one is higher than another. We all have gifts to share and specialties. Exactly. We are all people. And that's what they don't want to. They don't want to think about it that way. They think that by making us all equal, you get less somehow. It's a very bizarre mindset. Scott says, I bet they don't put the girly magazine chapter out in the movie. And Coffee says she was a call girl. Okay. Yeah, that does track. Those two things track. And they probably won't put that part in the movie. But still, Urban says Trump is her husband. She's a victim. I mean, I don't know why anybody would want to be married to him if it wasn't if it wasn't for money. I mean, could you imagine being married to somebody like that? You have to walk around on eggshells all the time, trying to not piss off, have to stroke their ego, let alone anything else, and needs constant validation and praise. I couldn't do it. I couldn't deal with it. I've had exes that weren't nearly that bad, but who needed constant validation, and I couldn't tolerate it. Kentucky says, yes, she is. We'll talk about being a call girl. Again, wouldn't surprise me. Also, Kentucky says, read about it and see she was. Yeah, I'm not surprised. Urban says, certainly for money. And Coffee Man says, it's for money. They live separately. Yeah, I heard they don't share a bedroom at the White House. She's barely there. She's typically off at one of the other properties. Especially this time around, only showing up for certain events. How sad. I mean, how pathetic. I was going to say sad, but I don't have any empathy for them at all. You know, it's just pathetic that is what your life has come to. And yet Republicans will point at that relationship as some sort of moral high ground to attain to. It's bizarre. Brent says, I'm back at work. Well, sorry you're at work. That sounds awful. But I'm glad you're back. Time for Texas. She might not have a way out, especially with immigration status. That's true. That's true. And I think she's only staying, though, because of money and the hope that she gets something at the end when he is finally gone and he shuffles off this mortal coil. Coffee Man says, I don't feel sorry for her. She could have left at any time. Yeah, exactly. She's put up with all of it. I think, and I could be wrong, but I think it's all because of whatever is in the prenup, trying to make sure she gets whatever she can get her hands on of his money and his estate and the properties and all of that. Molly says she has grifted her own money. That too. She's grifted a bunch off of being connected to him. The whole family is grifted. That's all they do. Everything they do is a grift. We heard about the Trump phones, right? Those Trump phones are delayed again. People have prepaid for phones. They can't really, it sounds like they're having trouble getting a carrier to cover and actually provide cell service. They can't go out and produce the phones and produce competing tech because they found out it's tougher than what they thought. So the best thing that, from what I'm hearing, is the ones you are going to get are like 4 or 5 model years old and they're all refurbished. You're not even getting something brand new. Aunt Molly says got $40 million for a film, like her life story. And it may be something that she got paid for, and it may never even see the light of day. Oliver's mom says, how about gold shoes? Exactly. Those gold shoes that I don't think ever materialized, or just one grift after another after another. Donald Trump has gotten to the point where it's all about just making himself some money quick while being president, and the presidency is just one big grift. Coffee Man says the movie is being released next week. Oh, I hadn't heard that. I can tell you I'm not going to go see it. The only way I would see it is if it is released on one of the free streaming apps, because I'm not going to give any money toward any project like that at all. I have no intention of seeing it. I may end up seeing some clips scrolling through TikTok here, but I have no intention of giving them any sort of ad revenue if I can help it, or ticket price or anything like that. Aunt Molly says Bezos paid her, and I believe I saw it was coming out. Yeah. Time for Texas. Seeds are more valuable than money at this point. Well, for some people, maybe. If you know how to grow, if you can grow your own food and things like that, wouldn't be a bad plan to be ready and prepared to start doing things like that. Bluebird says definitely no, talking about the movie. Yeah. No intention of watching it. Oliver's mom says, I plan to wait till it's on cable. Well, I'd wait till it's on cable, but I don't have cable. I haven't had cable in 14 years now, I think. Got to a point where it got to be too expensive. I couldn't afford it. And then I just started realizing I can live without it. Streaming services cover and do almost the same thing, and I can find exactly what I want to watch and not be at the mercy of somebody else telling me what I should watch at a particular day and time. Molly says I wouldn't buy Hillbilly Elegy. Yeah, I haven't bought that either. I wouldn't take the time to go to my local library and rent it or check it out. You know what I mean? Just not worth the time, even though it costs me nothing. No reason. I wouldn't do it. Coffeeman says I would never watch that crap even if they paid me. Well, I don't know if I'd go that far. I mean, depending on how much money they're paying me, because the movie's going to be at what? Most 2.5 hours, maybe. And if they're paying me, well, that may be worth it right there by itself. That I get it, get some money out of it. Now, I mean, it would have to be a considerable amount of money. If they paid me a couple weeks' wages to sit through 1 2-hour movie, I'd consider it. I'd at least consider it. I mean, I'd be crazy not to. Problem is, they pay you to watch it, and that just ups the view count, so it makes it look better on their part. So it also wouldn't surprise me at all if they're paying people to watch it, because they care about ratings and numbers and things like that. Scott says, I heard it's only about her life in the last couple of years. I haven't heard much more about it than what we've talked about in this live, so I have no idea. But again, wouldn't surprise me. Bluebird says, wouldn't be anything truthful in it anyway. I mean, there'd be a couple truthful things in there. I mean, her name is Melania. She is married to Donald. They have a son named Baron. There'd at least be those 3 truths in there. Maybe not more than that. She is the current first lady. Oliver's mom says one of the lines is, here we go again. Curious what that's about. Probably about her being first lady and not wanting to do the job. She doesn't want to do all of the things that are required to be a first lady. About, hosting the events and doing all of those things. She didn't like the job the first time around. I think she would have preferred if Donald had lost. I think everybody would have actually come out ahead if Donald had lost. I mean, we're only here because they couldn't bring themselves to vote for Kamala Harris. Oliver's mom says, but it will reveal stuff. It probably will. It probably will reveal some stuff. And I'm just going to wait and see the clips here, probably on TikTok. Aunt Molly says she shows up when he's floundering. Yeah. She's there to prop up his image more than anything. Coffeeman said she's here illegal anyway, and her parents were given citizenship too because she was the first lady. Yeah. Didn't she come in on a genius visa? Something like that, and she hasn't done anything to actually earn that. But because she's connected to somebody who is supposedly rich and arguably powerful, that she was able to get away with cheating the system. If most people had done that, they would have been out and off through immigration. They wouldn't have ever gotten through it. Gigi says it would have been an advantage to the whole world if he would have lost. Yeah, I guarantee you Kamala Harris would not have been trying to acquire Greenland and threatening NATO and having gone into Venezuela and done all of these things. Except there are people who would say all of the things that he is doing is all of the fear mongering that they did about what she was going to do. Ricky says Epstein visa. Yeah, that's basically what she got. Supreme Leader 2288 says Kamala didn't have awareness nationally at the time. No, she didn't. And that was one of the things I had said going into Biden's term, is that he had planned to be a one-term president. He should have been showcasing her, adding in the fact that he was the oldest person ever to have the office. She should have been front and center in everything that was going on. So whenever he stepped away, or if he passed away or whatever, that everybody would just accept her, because it was a different time. It wasn't a time to hide the vice president away and have it be a forgotten position. But that's not the way they decided to go. And then he was going to run. And then, he decided to instead run for a second term. And then he got forced out, and nobody knew who Kamala Harris was, not enough. And it definitely hurt. Molly says Epstein visa, talking about Melania Trump. Yeah, exactly. Supreme Leader 2288 says the debates were canceled for the first time in history as well. Yeah, and they were only canceled because Donald Trump didn't want to participate. He didn't want to agree to rules. He didn't want to do any of the things that was required because he knew he would be embarrassed. He would be embarrassed, so he didn't want to comply. He wanted it his way. He didn't like his mic getting shut off. He didn't like being fact-checked and called out for saying just whatever he wanted. He just wanted to have an hour and a half where he could go up, say whatever he wanted to Kamala Harris or to Joe Biden, and to have them stand there and just take it. And that's not what what should have happened. Coffeeman says, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but that election was rigged, and that's why it was called so early. I don't know that for sure it was, but there are some things that don't add up. I think the Democrats made some mistakes in the 2024 election, and that they could have done things differently. One of the things I've been saying they should have done from the get-go is when Joe Biden decided in June or July, right there at the end, to end up not running, that he should have also resigned the presidency and made her president. Then all of the historical side of it's gone, and she fulfilled the job she was elected to as vice president, would be to fill the vacancy if the president can't run or can't do the job. He would have stepped down, she would have become president, and now she's the incumbent. That would have raised her profile, and it would have given her a leg up as she's dealing with everything. And once Joe Biden was out of the way, she could have started to walk away from some of the things he did and actually affect changes. And there would have been a lot less things people could have complained about. Supreme Leader says that was weird. A lot of receipts on that, talking about the election. Yeah, there was a lot of weird things about them calling it early. I just wish there was some actual proof other than just some, kind of, sort of, maybe it looks weird. And Molly says Dems should have contested. They could have done a better job of fighting it. But even I think the Dems didn't expect it to get this bad. And they thought that the Republicans were going to actually put some guardrails up and actually hold them accountable, which I don't know why they were expecting that. I just didn't think things would get this bad this quick. And I think one of the reasons as to why the things got this bad this quick is because he knows and he's aware that he's not going to make it to the end of his term health-wise, and he's trying to do everything he can to further his legacy for as long as he can. Rick said, and their 5 million dead people from the 2020 election didn't show up. Yeah, that's all bullshit. You know it's bullshit, but you believe that because it came from Fox News, who likes to serve cream of bullshit soup. So you're blocked. Supreme Leader 2288 says she wouldn't have been able to get a lot done unless she had an executive order scholar. Didn't need to get a lot done. Just being in the office would have been enough. She wouldn't have to have had done a whole lot with executive order. Just being the president and actively engaging with foreign leaders and showing that leadership would have changed a lot of minds about her leadership abilities. Supreme Leader says Trump probably would have still got to 272. No, he wouldn't have. No, I don't think he would have. Not if Kamala Harris had been the incumbent. Brent says, Booker has been quiet with all that's going on. Talking about Cory Booker? Yeah. So is Jill Stein. You notice that? Jill Stein's been awful quiet too. And so have the Jill Stein voters. The ones who just could not bring themselves to vote for a Democrat. Because they had to vote third party, even though we told them there's no way a third party is ever going to win. They're suddenly quiet. We won't hear a peep out of them until 2028 when she gets unthawed and comes back out of hiding and runs again, and they vote for her again. All right, I've been going a little over 90 minutes here. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I want to thank everybody for taking the time to join me. It's been a great conversation. As I mentioned in the middle, this will go up as tomorrow's Analytical Iowan podcast. It'll be up over on YouTube and on Spotify, so look for that. I want to encourage you to check out the Analytical Iowan podcast. I try to do a daily show most days, some days it doesn't fit in with my work schedule, but I am trying to get to a daily show, as well as having all of my TikToks up over on YouTube and Spotify as well. So thank you for taking the time to join me. Hope you have a great night, and I will catch you the next time I go live.
That was Eric. That does it for our analysis today. If you appreciated us cutting through the noise to get to the critical context, please make sure you're subscribed to the Analytical Iowan podcast on Spotify and YouTube. We'll be back tomorrow. Thanks for listening.